The locker room always smelled like sweat, metal, and adrenaline, that raw mix of victory and violence that came after every Friday night game. The team was celebrating another win, shouting, laughing, slapping shoulders, the usual chaos. But I was just sitting there pretending to untie my cleats, trying not to stare, because he was there. Caleb Reed, the golden boy, the captain, the one every girl wanted and every guy wanted to be. He had that kind of confidence that made rooms bend around him, tall, broad shoulders, jaw sharp enough to cut glass, and eyes that looked like they carried secrets. He was the reason our small-town team had gone from nobodies to state champions, and I was just the backup wide receiver, invisible unless he threw the ball my way until that night. The rest of the team eventually cleared out, still laughing and shouting, leaving behind the echo of music and the dripping of the showers. Caleb stayed behind. So did I. He was sitting on the bench across from me, helmet on the floor, hair damp with sweat, breathing hard, like he'd just run through every wall between us. "You played good tonight," he said, voice low. "Thanks," I replied, trying to sound casual even though my pulse was pounding. He nodded slowly, eyes locked on me. "You ever get tired of pretending?" The words hit me harder than any tackle. Before I could even ask what he meant, he stood up, crossed the space between us, and stopped so close I could feel the heat radiating off him. For a moment, neither of us breathed. Then he kissed me. It wasn't soft. It wasn't hesitant. It was like he'd been holding it in for years. And in that moment, every noise, every fear, every rule about what we were supposed to be disappeared. But the door creaked open, and someone saw. Sometimes the strongest men fight the quietest battles. Stay until the end of this story, because what started as one forbidden kiss turned into a secret that changed everything. If you believe love is worth the risk, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. The truth behind this kiss will leave you breathless. The roar of the crowd was deafening. Every light in the stadium burned white against the dark autumn sky, and for a few hours every Friday, our small town became something bigger, something that almost felt alive. "Parker, you're in!" Coach Miller shouted from the sideline. My hands were slick with sweat as I ran onto the field, helmet tight, heart hammering in my chest. Caleb Reed, our quarterback, our hero, clapped my shoulder as I lined up beside him. "Run the post," he said, voice steady, calm, the same tone he used right before doing something impossible. I nodded, but my throat was dry. I wasn't nervous about the play. I was nervous because of him, because standing that close to him always felt like standing too close to a fire. The whistle blew. Caleb dropped back, eyes scanning the field, and I sprinted into open space. The ball cut through the air, spinning perfectly like it was born to find me. It hit my chest, hard, but my hands held. I took 3 steps and crossed into the end zone. Touchdown. The crowd exploded. The band started playing. Caleb was the first to reach me, grabbing my face mask and yelling, "That's how you do it, Parker!" He pulled me in, forehead to forehead, shouting over the noise. It was something teammates did all the time, except this time it didn't feel like just that. For a second, I swear I saw something in his eyes. Something electric. Something real. After the game, the locker room was chaos. Victory smelled like sweat, cologne, and adrenaline. Guys were shouting, spraying water bottles, pounding lockers. Caleb sat on the bench, still in his gear, towel around his neck, smiling that easy, perfect smile that made everyone want to be near him. He caught me watching. "You did good out there," he said. "Didn't drop it this time." "Thanks," I said, half laughing. "Guess miracles happen." He smirked, leaning back against the locker. "You just needed someone to believe in you." Someone threw a towel at us, yelling, "Hey, lovebirds, stop flirting." The room burst into laughter. Caleb's grin didn't fade. He just looked down, shaking his head, and said, "Ignore them." I did, or at least I pretended to, because the truth was, every word, every glance, every stupid joke they made hit closer than they realized. After most of the team left, I lingered, packing my bag slowly, waiting for the noise to die down. Caleb was still there. He'd peeled off his jersey, his shirt clinging to his chest, skin still shining with sweat. He moved like someone who didn't have to think about being watched. But I was watching anyway. "Why do you always stay late?" he asked, not looking up. I shrugged. "I like the quiet." He nodded. "Yeah, me too." For a while, the only sound was the water dripping from the showers. Then he said, "You ever feel like none of this feels real?" I looked at him. "What do you mean?" He tossed his towel into the bin and sat down on the bench. All the noise, the people, the whole hero thing. It's like they built someone out of me I don't even recognize. He said it so casually, but something in his voice cracked a little. "You sound tired," I said. He chuckled quietly. "Guess I am." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You're the only one who looks at me like I'm still human." The words made my chest tighten. "That's because you are." He looked at me then, really looked. "You think so?" "Yeah," I said softly. "You just forget sometimes." His eyes held mine longer than they should have. Then the locker room door creaked open, and someone called out, "Reed, you coming?" He blinked, the moment breaking. "Yeah, be right there." When the door shut again, he said quietly, "They think they know me, but they don't." I swallowed hard. "Then let them keep guessing." He smiled, slow and tired. "Maybe you do know me, Parker." I didn't know how to answer that. The next day, word spread fast. Scouts were coming to see Caleb. Big schools, big dreams. He was the future of our town, the reason everyone wore blue on Fridays and painted their faces with our team logo. For everyone else, he was a symbol. For me, he was just a person. That night we stayed after practice again. It had become a pattern, the two of us, silent, stretching, sitting on the grass under the floodlights. He threw me a football, smirking. "Bet you drop it again." I caught it easily. Not a chance. We tossed it back and forth, the ball thudding softly against our palms. The world outside the field didn't exist. At one point I missed his throw, and the ball rolled toward the bench. When I jogged to grab it, I noticed him watching me, not the way teammates watch each other, but the way people look at something they're trying to understand and can't. "What?" I said, half smiling. "Nothing," he said quickly, but his voice betrayed him. He walked toward me, slow, unsure, like each step was a question he didn't know how to ask. "You ever think about leaving?" he said finally. "Leaving what?" "This town, this team, the whole damn act. All the time," I said. He nodded, eyes on the field. "Sometimes I wonder what it'd be like if I could just stop pretending." He turned to me then, so close I could see the pulse in his neck. "But you already know about pretending, don't you?" The question hit me straight in the chest. I tried to play it off. "We all do." He smiled, not mocking, just sad. "Yeah, some of us more than others." Before I could reply, Coach's whistle cut through the night. "Reed, Parker, lock up when you're done." Caleb didn't move. Neither did I. We just stood there under the lights, hearts racing, knowing something invisible had just shifted between us. He picked up the ball and tossed it one last time, his voice low and careful. "See you in the locker room tomorrow." And when he said it, it didn't sound like a casual comment. It sounded like a promise. Saturday morning came with the kind of quiet that feels suspicious, like the world is holding its breath after something big. I woke up sore from the game, muscles tight, adrenaline finally gone. On my phone, there were already messages from teammates, mostly jokes about last night's win. But one stuck out. "Caleb R. Meet me at the field. 10 a.m. I stared at it for a long minute. There was no emoji, no explanation. Just that. By the time I got there, the bleachers were empty, dew still clinging to the grass. Caleb was standing at the 50-yard line, tossing a football from one hand to the other, dressed in a grey hoodie and sweatpants. He looked different without the helmet, almost normal. "You showed," he said when he saw me. "You said 10, I answered. You're never late, he smirked. Old habits. For a while we just threw the ball back and forth. The thump of leather against our palms filled the silence. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded rougher than usual. You remember what I said last night? I caught the ball, heart kicking up. You mean about pretending? He nodded slowly. Yeah, that. What about it? He looked at me, eyes sharp in the cold light. I meant it. I swallowed. I figured. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the faint mix of soap and grass on his skin. Parker, I don't know what that kiss was to you, but— Stop, I said, breathless. You don't have to explain. Yeah, I do, he said. Because I can't stop thinking about it. The words hit me like a hit to the ribs. Before I could answer, the gate clanged. We both turned. Jake Foster, the linebacker, Caleb's oldest friend, was walking across the track, grinning like he'd caught us red-handed. Well, well, he said. Didn't know we were doing extra practice today. Caleb's jaw tightened. Just working on passes. Jake's grin widened. Sure, looked more like you were working on something else. Watch it, Caleb said. Jake shrugged. Relax, man. I'm kidding. But the way his eyes lingered told me he wasn't. When he finally left, Caleb exhaled hard, rubbing the back of his neck. This can't get out. I know, I said quietly. It won't, from me. He nodded, but his face stayed tense. Jake's not stupid, if he even suspects. The rest of the sentence hung there, unfinished but heavy. By Monday, the tension had settled like fog over the locker room. Jake watched us constantly, laughing a little too loudly whenever we talked. The other guys didn't notice, yet. But I could feel it coming, like thunder somewhere far off. During practice, Coach yelled at me for dropping a pass I never even saw. My head wasn't in the game. It was still replaying Caleb's words. Afterward, while the others hit the showers, Caleb stayed behind, pretending to tape his wrist. Meet me by the equipment shed tonight, he muttered. Why? Because I need to tell you something and I can't do it here. The sky was already deep blue when I got there. The shed sat behind the bleachers, lights buzzing, air smelling like dust and old turf. He was waiting, leaning against the wall, arms folded. I thought you changed your mind, he said. Almost did, I admitted. Didn't want to make things worse. He smiled faintly. Too late for that. He looked tired, like the weight of everyone's expectations was pressing on his shoulders. My dad called, he said finally. Said the scouts from UCLA want to meet next month. It's everything I've worked for. But all I can think about is how one picture, one rumor, and it's gone. I took a breath. You're scared, he laughed softly. Terrified. Everyone thinks I'm fearless, but they have no idea. He met my eyes. You're the only person I don't have to fake it with. That broke something in me. You don't have to fake it with me either, I said. He stepped closer. Then tell me you don't feel the same. I didn't move. Couldn't. He reached up, hand brushing my jaw. The touch was cautious this time, gentle. The world outside went silent. Then slowly he kissed me again. No crowd, no noise. Just us and the hum of the stadium lights. When we pulled apart, he whispered, I don't know what this is. But I can't lose it. You won't, I said. But deep down, we both knew it wasn't that simple. 2 days later, the rumor started. At first, it was a whisper in the hallway. Someone said they'd seen Caleb and me near the shed. By lunchtime, half the school was talking about it. By practice, the locker room was tense enough to spark. Jake cornered me after drills, voice low. You and Reed got something you want to share with the team? I froze. What's that supposed to mean? He smirked. Come on, Parker. You think people don't see the way he looks at you? I didn't answer. Jake stepped closer. You know what'll happen if this gets out, right? He's the star. You're nobody. They'll chew you up. He walked away before I could respond. That night, Caleb showed up at my house. He didn't knock, just waited outside until I saw him through the window. Jake knows, he said as soon as I stepped outside. I figured. He looked around like the shadows themselves might be listening. If this spreads, the scouts pull out. My dad loses his mind. Coach benches me. What do you want me to do? He hesitated. We should stop. Just until the season's over. The words sliced through me. Stop, I said quietly. After everything? He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I'm trying to protect us. Feels more like you're protecting yourself, I said before I could stop it. He looked at me, guilt flickering across his face. You think I want this? You think I like hiding? Then don't, I said. You're Caleb Reed. You're supposed to be fearless. He laughed bitterly. You don't get it. Being fearless on the field is easy. It's everything off it that scares the hell out of me. He turned to leave. I almost called after him, but didn't. The distance between us had never felt so big. The next morning, the locker room was quieter than usual. Someone had drawn a heart on my locker in red marker. Inside it were two initials. C+P. I stared at it until the letters blurred. Caleb walked in a few minutes later, froze when he saw it, then looked at me. I'll fix this, he said. I shook my head. Don't. Let them think whatever they want. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. Okay. But the look in his eyes told me he didn't believe that, and for the first time, I wondered if love really could survive a game built on keeping secrets. Friday night. Another home game, but this time the stadium didn't sound the same. The cheers felt sharper, the laughter colder. Every face in the crowd looked like it already knew something. The rumor wasn't a rumor anymore, it had a life of its own. Someone had taken a photo of Caleb and me, standing near the equipment shed after practice, silhouettes too close under the floodlights. It spread like wildfire. By the end of the week, the entire school had seen it. Coach hadn't said a word about it, but his silence said enough. The way he avoided Caleb's eyes during drills, the way he looked at me like I'd brought a disease onto his field. We both tried to act normal. But the air between us was thick with things we couldn't say. The first half of the game was brutal. Every time I lined up, I could hear the whispers from the stands, jokes, slurs, laughter that cut deeper than tackles ever could. At one point I dropped a pass I would have caught in my sleep. The crowd groaned. Someone yelled, "Maybe he's distracted by his boyfriend." And the laughter that followed made my stomach twist. Caleb's face darkened under his helmet. He walked straight to the line, jaw clenched, voice low. "Next play," he muttered. We shut them up. He snapped the ball and threw it, not to me, but a perfect spiral to another receiver. Touchdown. The crowd roared again, but this time it wasn't victory that filled me. It was distance. After the play, he walked past me without a glance. In the locker room at halftime, the tension cracked. Coach slammed his clipboard onto the bench. "I don't care what you girls are fighting about. You play like that again, you're benched." No one spoke. Jake smirked from across the room. "Maybe if some people kept their drama off the field—" "Shut up," Caleb snapped. Jake raised an eyebrow. "Just saying, man. Not good for the team image." Something inside me broke. "What image, Jake?" "The one where you all pretend to be men but act like scared kids every time someone's different." The room went dead silent. Jake stood up slowly. "Watch your mouth." I didn't. "No, you watch yours." He shoved me first, hard. My back hit a locker with a metallic crack. I saw Caleb move before I felt the pain. Fast, furious. He tackled Jake to the ground, fists flying. "Enough!" Coach bellowed, pulling them apart. Caleb's lip was bleeding. Jake's eye was already swelling. Coach pointed toward the door. "Both of you, out. Now!" Outside, the night air felt colder than it should have. The stadium noise echoed in the distance, muffled by the walls. Caleb leaned against the brick, breathing hard. "You shouldn't have done that," I said quietly. He wiped blood from his mouth. "You think I'm gonna stand there while they talk about you like that?" "They were talking about us," I said. "Yeah, now you just proved them right." He looked up, eyes flashing. "Right about what?" "That I care." The words hung there, raw and reckless. Before I could answer, the locker room door opened again. Coach stepped out, anger written across his face. "Reed, go home. You're done for the night." Caleb nodded without arguing. When the door slammed shut behind him, we just stood there under the dim light. He finally said, "I meant what I said." "I know," I whispered. "That's what scares me. He didn't come to school Monday." Or Tuesday, rumors spread again, this time worse. People said he'd been suspended indefinitely, that the scouts had dropped him, that his dad had pulled him out of the team entirely. I tried texting him. Nothing. By Wednesday, I couldn't stand it anymore. I went to his house. His dad opened the door, tall, broad, wearing an old varsity jacket that still looked too small for his ego. "Can I see Caleb?" I asked. He looked at me like I'd said something offensive. "You're Parker, right?" "Yes, sir." His jaw tightened. "He's busy, please," I said. He stepped forward, voice cold. "You stay away from my son." It wasn't a request. He shut the door in my face. That night I went back to the field. The bleachers were empty, the air thick with mist. The stadium lights were off, but I didn't need them. I could still hear the echo of the crowd, the laughter, the cheers, ghosts of a world that had already turned its back on us. Then I saw him, sitting on the 50-yard line, hood up, alone. "Couldn't stay away, huh?" he said when I got closer. "I tried," I said. "Didn't work." He smiled faintly, but his eyes were tired. "Dad grounded me. Took my phone, said I embarrassed the family. Because you defended me. Because I stopped pretending." He looked down at the turf. "Scouts pulled out. Coach says I can come back next season if I keep my head down. But I'm done." "You're quitting?" He shook his head. "No, I'm walking away." I sat beside him. "What about college?" "Football?" He laughed softly. "What's the point of playing a game that only loves you when you lie?" I didn't know how to answer that. After a while, he said quietly, "You ever think maybe we weren't meant to fit here?" "Every day." He looked up at the bleachers, the empty space where the town used to worship him. "It's weird, you know. I spent years trying to be their hero. Turns out I just wanted to be someone's truth." I swallowed. "You are." He looked at me then, and the wall between us, all the fear, the hiding, the pretending, finally cracked for good. He leaned forward, voice barely a whisper. "You still scared?" "Always," I said. "But not of you." He smiled, a small, sad smile that still somehow felt like victory. Then he kissed me. No crowds, no rumors, no noise, just two people, under the quiet hum of broken lights, refusing to apologize for being real. When we pulled apart, he said, "You know this isn't over, right?" "I know," I said. "But at least now it's ours." He nodded, eyes shining. "Then let them talk." By the next morning, the entire school knew Caleb had quit the team. The news hit harder than the rumor itself. He wasn't just our star quarterback. He was the face of the school, the golden boy, the reason we were on the map. Without him, the entire football season suddenly felt pointless, and somehow it was my fault. The whispers followed me everywhere. Hallway, cafeteria, even class. People stopped talking when I walked by, then started again, just loud enough for me to hear. Can't believe he threw it all away for that guy. He must have been desperate. Parker probably blackmailed him or something. Every word hit like a bruise. But I kept walking, head up, pretending I didn't hear. Caleb didn't show up for 2 days. When he finally did, the air around him shifted. Gone was the confident stride, the easy smile. He walked like someone carrying something invisible but heavy. When our eyes met across the hallway, everything else disappeared. He gave me a small nod, nothing more. But it said everything. I'm still here. That afternoon, I found him sitting under the bleachers, sketchbook open on his knees. It was something I didn't know he did until recently, drawing quietly, like he was trying to capture something before it vanished. He didn't look up when I sat down beside him. "They started calling my house," he said softly. "Reporters, scouts, even a few alumni. Dad lost it. He said I ruined everything he ever worked for." I hesitated. "What did you say?" He gave a hollow laugh. "Nothing." "What was I supposed to say?" "That I didn't ruin everything, just the version of me he wanted." He flipped a page in the sketchbook. The drawing was of the field, empty, lights off, 2 figures sitting at the 50-yard line. Us. "You draw us," I said quietly. He nodded. "It's the only way I know how to keep it." The silence that followed wasn't awkward this time. It was heavy, but in a way that made sense. Like we were both learning how to breathe in this new version of the world, one where nothing was hidden, but everything was harder. Later that week, Coach called me into his office. The blinds were closed, the air stale. He didn't ask me to sit. "I'm not going to dance around it," he said. "You and Reed caused a mess." I stayed quiet. "You think this is some kind of movie romance, but you've cost this program a championship season and maybe his scholarship." I clenched my fists. "With all due respect, sir, Caleb made his own choices." He narrowed his eyes. You're a decent player, Parker. But if you think colleges will take you now, you're dreaming. Word gets around fast. I'm not ashamed, I said. He leaned back in his chair. Maybe you should be. That did it. I turned for the door. You'll regret this, he called after me. I didn't look back. Maybe, but at least it'll be my regret. Outside, I found Caleb waiting by his truck. He talked to you too. I asked. He nodded. Yeah, said the same thing. That I'm wasting my talent. That nobody wants a distraction on their team. He looked at me, jaw tight. Funny how I spent years being their poster boy. One photo and now I'm a problem. I didn't know how to comfort him. Every word I thought of felt too small. So instead I said, come on, let's get out of here. We drove aimlessly for a while, past the gas station, the lake, the old diner with the neon sign that never worked right. Eventually, we pulled off onto a dirt road that led to nowhere. He turned off the engine, resting his head against the seat. I thought football was my whole life. It was, I said, until you found something bigger. He turned to me, eyes searching mine. And what if that something gets taken away too? It won't, I said. Not unless you let them. He looked down, voice breaking just a little. You don't get it, Parker. I spent years pretending to be the guy everyone wanted, the son my dad could brag about, the player the town worshipped. And now I'm nobody. You're not nobody, I said firmly. You're just not theirs anymore. For a second he didn't move. Then he reached over, his hand finding mine. His fingers were warm, calloused, trembling. You ever wish we'd met somewhere else? He asked. All the time, where people didn't care so much about what you're supposed to be. I smiled faintly. Maybe that's the point, finding the people who do care. Even when the world doesn't. The next week, the school paper ran a headline, Reed quits team. Sources say scandal involved. There was a photo too. Not the one of us at the shed, but a newer one. Someone had caught us sitting in his truck outside town, heads close together, like two fugitives. Caleb's dad stormed into the school that morning. Everyone saw it. He cornered the principal in the hall, voice echoing. And you're letting this circus ruin my son's future. Caleb didn't come to class after that. By Friday, he was gone. The rumor said he'd moved in with an aunt a few towns over. Some said he'd left for good. I didn't believe any of it. I couldn't. That night I went back to the field again. The same spot. The same cold air. The lights were off, but I could still see the faint outline of the 50-yard line. I sat down just like we used to, tracing the numbers in the dirt with my finger. Then in the distance, I saw headlights. The truck pulled up slowly, engine cutting off. For a second I thought I was imagining it, but then I heard his voice. Couldn't stay away either, huh? I turned, heart pounding. You came back, he smiled, small, tired, but real. For now. He sat beside me, pulling a folded piece of paper from his pocket. Drew something for you. It was a sketch of me this time, sitting under the lights, head tilted up, eyes half closed. On the bottom, he'd written, The Boy Who Stayed. I looked at him, and for the first time in weeks, the weight in my chest loosened. He leaned closer, voice soft. You know, I don't care what they say anymore. I smiled faintly. You finally mean that? He nodded. Yeah, because I've already lost everything that wasn't real. He looked out at the dark field, then back at me. But what's left feels like the only thing that ever was. When Caleb came back, it didn't take long for the town to notice. His truck in the school parking lot was enough to start the noise all over again. By first period, everyone knew. By lunch, people were whispering that he'd shown up just to prove a point, but he didn't care anymore. That was the difference. He walked through the halls like a storm in slow motion, calm, unshakable, and impossible to ignore. And even though I tried to keep my distance, part of me couldn't help but feel proud, because he wasn't hiding anymore. Still, I could see the weight on his shoulders. Freedom isn't light, not when the world insists you earn it. That afternoon we met behind the gym, out of sight from everyone. You shouldn't have come back, I said quietly. He smiled. Why not? They're going to tear you apart again. They already did, he said. And I'm still standing. He was trying to sound fearless, but I could hear the edge in his voice. What about your dad? I asked. He hesitated. He said if I step on that field again, I'm not welcome in his house. I froze. Caleb, He shrugged, forcing a half-smile. Guess I'll need to find a new place to stay. Where will you go? Doesn't matter. Anywhere that's mine. He looked at me, his eyes softer now. You don't get it, Parker. For the first time in my life, I'm not scared of losing something that never really belonged to me. The bell rang in the distance, but neither of us moved. That night, the school held a meeting. The principal called it an emergency discussion about team integrity. Everyone knew what it was really about. Parents filled the auditorium, voices buzzing like a swarm of angry bees. Some wanted him back on the team. Others wanted him expelled. I sat near the back listening, heart pounding. Then his father stood up. My son disgraced this town, he said, his voice cold and practiced. He was raised to be a leader, and instead he threw everything away for this. He didn't even look at me when he said it. But I felt it like a slap. The room murmured, divided. Then halfway through the chaos, the doors at the back opened. Caleb walked in. The crowd went silent. He walked straight to the front, his hands shaking only slightly as he took the microphone. You all keep talking about me like I'm not here, he said, his voice steady.
So I'm gonna say this once. He took a breath.
You can call me a disappointment. You can say I ruined everything. But the truth is, I'm just done pretending to be what you want. I'm not ashamed of who I am. And if that means I don't fit your version of a hero, then maybe you need a new one. The room erupted, half gasps, half applause. His father stood furious. Caleb, that's enough. No, Dad, he said. For once, it's finally enough. He dropped the microphone and walked out. I followed. Outside, the night air hit like a shock. The sky was dark, the streetlights flickering. He stopped near his truck, breathing hard. You were incredible in there, I said. He laughed bitterly. Yeah, tell that to the mob inside. They heard you, I said. Even if they won't admit it, he looked at me, eyes glassy. I don't care anymore. Then why are you shaking? He exhaled, sitting on the tailgate. Because I've spent my whole life trying to make people proud of me. And now that I've stopped, I don't know who I am. I sat beside him. You'll figure it out. He looked down. You think so? I know so. He leaned closer, voice barely above a whisper. You're the only thing that feels real anymore. Before I could respond, headlights appeared, his father's truck pulling into the parking lot. Caleb, I said, standing. You don't have to. I do, he said quietly. His dad got out, slamming the door. Get in the car. No, Caleb said. The man froze. Excuse me? I said no. His father's face darkened. Don't do this here. I'm not doing anything, Caleb said. I'm just done being afraid of you. His father took a step forward, fists clenched. You think this is courage? Throwing your life away for some stupid fantasy? It's not a fantasy, Caleb said, voice breaking. It's me. He turned to leave, but his father grabbed his arm. The movement was quick, reflexive, angry. Don't walk away from me. Let go, Caleb said through gritted teeth. Not until you... I moved before I thought, stepping between them. He said, let go. His father's hand dropped. He looked at me with disgust. This is your fault. No, Caleb said. This is my choice. For a second, the only sound was the hum of the streetlight. Then his father got back in the truck and drove off, tires spitting gravel. Caleb stood still for a long time, breathing hard. Then finally he whispered, I can't go back. You don't have to. He looked at me, eyes red, voice small. Then where do I go? I took a deep breath. You can stay with me. He blinked. You serious? Yeah, my mom's out of town for the week. You'll have a bed, food, a roof. He laughed softly. You sure she'll be okay with that? She likes you, I said. Just not for the reasons she thinks. For the first time that night he smiled. Okay, he said quietly. Then I guess I'm staying. When we got to my house, he dropped his bag in the corner and sat on the edge of my bed. The silence between us felt different now, heavier, but full of something warm. He looked up, exhaustion in his voice. You really think it'll get better? Maybe not right away, I said. But one day. He nodded slowly. Then I can wait. He lay back, staring at the ceiling. You know, for the first time in forever, I feel like I can breathe. I sat beside him, heart racing. Then breathe. He turned his head toward me, eyes soft. Stay with me? Always, I said. and as the rain began to fall against the window, I realized we'd finally stopped running, not from the world, but from ourselves. The morning after Caleb stayed at my house felt strangely quiet. No shouting parents, no teammates, no whispers. Just sunlight cutting through the blinds and the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen. He was still asleep when I walked in. Sprawled across the bed, one arm thrown over his face, breathing slow and steady. For a moment I just watched him. The same boy who'd carried the weight of a whole town on his shoulders now looked like a kid who could finally rest. When he stirred, blinking against the light, he smiled faintly. "You watching me sleep now?" "Making sure you're real," I said. He stretched, groaning softly. "Still feels like a dream. Except my back hurts, so maybe not," I laughed. "Yeah, sorry. The bed's not exactly fit for fallen quarterbacks," he smirked. "Guess it'll do for one night," but I could tell he was thinking ahead about what would happen after that night ended. My mom called around noon. She was supposed to be out of town for the week, but plans had changed. "I'll be home tomorrow," she said. "Everything okay?" I looked at Caleb, sitting across from me, barefoot, eating cereal straight from the box. "Yeah," I said. "Everything's fine." When I hung up, he asked, "Should I go before she gets back?" I shook my head. "No, you're not running again." He stared at his bowl. "It's not about running. It's about not making your life harder." "Too late," I said, smiling. "You already did." He laughed quietly, but there was sadness behind it. "I never wanted to drag you into this." "You didn't," I said. I walked in. Later we went out for a drive. The sky was clear, the air cold enough to sting. We ended up by the lake, the one where the team used to celebrate after big wins. Now it was empty, just the sound of wind pushing against the water. He parked by the shore and killed the engine. "Remember after the first game we won together?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "You threw me my first touchdown." He smiled faintly. "I was supposed to throw to Jake." I blinked. "Wait, what?" He shrugged. "I saw you open and went for it. Coach yelled at me later, but I didn't care." "Why?" He looked out at the water, voice low. "Because I wanted to see you smile." I didn't even know why at the time. I just knew it mattered. The air went still. The sound of the lake faded until all I could hear was my heartbeat. I reached over, brushing his hand. "You don't have to explain." He turned to me, eyes shining in the late light. "No, I want to." He took a breath. "You were the first person who saw me. Not the quarterback, not the trophy, not the name on the banner, me. And when you looked at me, it didn't feel like pressure. It felt like peace." I swallowed hard. "You deserve peace, Caleb." He nodded slowly. "So do you." Then he leaned in, not rushed, not afraid, and kissed me. It wasn't like the locker room or the field or any of the stolen moments before. It was soft, steady, honest. When he pulled away, he whispered, This is who I am." "I know," I said. "And you don't have to hide anymore." He smiled, eyes glistening. "Even if the world still hates me for it?" "Then we make our own world," I said. That night we talked for hours, about college, about leaving town, about what came next. "I got an email," he said suddenly, "from a coach upstate. Smaller school. They saw my tapes before everything happened. And they still want me," I grinned. "That's huge." He laughed softly. "Yeah, except it's 6 hours away." My chest tightened. "You're going?" "I think I have to," he said quietly. "I need a fresh start." I tried to smile. "Then you should go." He looked at me, searching. "You'll hate me if I do." "No," I said. "I'll hate myself if I stop you." He reached for my hand. "You could come with me, you know." I laughed. "And do what? Become your water boy again?" He smiled. "No, just be there." We both knew it wasn't that simple, but the idea of someday was enough. The next morning, we packed his things. He didn't have much. A duffel bag, a few shirts, his sketchbook. Before he left, he pulled out one last drawing. It was the two of us sitting under the stadium lights, the field stretching behind us. At the bottom, he'd written, "The boy who stayed and the one who finally left." I traced the words with my finger. "You're really leaving, huh?" He smiled sadly. "For now, but not forever." He stepped closer, his forehead against mine. "You saved me, Parker. You know that?" I didn't save you, I whispered. You just finally stopped pretending. He nodded, eyes wet. Yeah, but I wouldn't have done it without you. The sound of his truck starting felt like the end of something, and the beginning of everything else. As he drove off, the dust rose behind him like smoke. I stood there until the tail lights disappeared. Weeks passed. Life didn't magically fix itself. People still stared, whispered, judged. But I didn't care anymore. Every so often a letter arrived. Short, simple, always signed the same way. Still me. Still yours. Gee, sometimes I'd drive by the empty field. The grass was overgrown, the bleachers half rusted. But I could still see him there, laughing, shouting, alive, and I'd realized that even though he'd left, part of him never really did. Sometimes love doesn't fix everything. It doesn't erase judgment or fear, but it changes you. It makes you brave enough to live honestly, even when honesty costs everything. Would you risk everything to be yourself, even if it meant losing everyone else? If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because love, no matter how fragile or forbidden, deserves to be seen.